Anivo Marketing, here with me, a good friend and a client of ours at Stacks. We've been helping Matt as his fractional CFO, taking care of his accounting, his KPIs, his finances, his taxes. Just wanted to have a quick conversation with him and get to know kind of how he ended up working with us. And maybe Matt, if you want to share your story of what you do and how you came to the decision of, hey, I got to get my finances straightened out.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, my name is Matt. I run Anivo Marketing. We do B2B lead generation. And honestly, it came to a point midway through last year where I was starting to realize, I bootstrapped this business. We were growing pretty quick. And I was starting to quickly realize that I was in way over my head when it came to like bookkeeping, accounting, and really anything. Like I thought of myself as a somewhat technical person, savvy person. But then I just, realized I watched a couple of YouTube videos and I realized the magnitude of the situation. So I was introduced to Alex by some mutual people in our network, and after talking to him, like 1-2 conversations, I knew he was the guy for the job. Yeah, and it's been honestly a great experience since starting working
It's
with him.
been fun. Yeah. Yeah, we've dialed a lot of your stuff in. I think there was a good amount of, because at the time, I believe you were a single member LLC, and we were ultimately able to get your S-Corp election dialed in and approved, which actually was, there's a deadline, and you were well past that deadline to be able to submit that. Maybe talk about how that process was for you, because I think that's definitely something that a lot of business owners that are starting to grow are becoming aware of this and realizing this is probably the next step for us.
Yeah, for sure. I was looking, and so yeah, prior to working with you, I kind of like knew about what an S corp was, or just like the general concept of it. And after I heard that, like, oh, once you reach a certain income threshold, you should definitely do it. Then I started talking to Alex. I realized the implications of what it actually meant if I didn't do it tax wise.
Yeah.
That for me, it would result in literally like thousands, actually, probably tens of thousands of dollars in tax savings of doing that. And yeah, I didn't know much about the deadlines, any of that stuff. I just came to Alex with the problem and he basically just took it from there. I had a lot of questions because I'm just, inquisitive or whatever. But for the most part, it's, hey, Alex, this is where I'm at. And then he took everything from the paperwork, who we should be reaching out to, what I need to fill out, the mailing of the form, reaching out to people. Like it was super, super simple and easy. Like I literally just had the problem, came to Alex. He said, do this, within a few minutes, I had everything set up and he took care of the rest. And that saved me into this year probably tens of thousands of dollars in taxes. So
Yeah, that was a great one. That was definitely a great one. I'm glad we were able to do that for you. And you mentioned something really interesting too, which was because you're pretty savvy as it is with your finances. However, there was still quite a bit of things that we needed to implement for you to really start streamlining things. I would say for people watching, what really got dialed in for you in terms of maybe the reporting side or the KPI side that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of that you actually did need help with, kind of over and above what you already do? Because I know you already kind of have some of your financial planning stuff set up. You've got some, some vehicles to contribute money to, and you were by far further along than most, I think. And it's always interesting to hear from clients, what was one of the big kind of clarity points that we were able to offer in terms of just being able to streamline more than just the bookkeeping, because we're not bookkeepers, we're fractional CFOs, and a lot goes into that.
yeah, I would say it's definitely a lot of things. So yeah, I agree. I would say I would think of myself as pretty financially savvy in terms like my own investments, or at least on the personal side. But when it came to the business side, like I was just lost. Everything, like I didn't even have bookkeeping in place. The fact that you could automate and do a lot of the stuff, that a lot of the processes that would have even been repetitive on your end or automated, was probably a huge saver there too. So the bookkeeping definitely was a value add, but mainly one of the main drivers is just on the advisory side and the reporting side. So like one thing that I struggled with and was actually a recent issue is I was just in the last month or so deciding on whether or not I should make a big hire. And I didn't really have a good idea of like cash flow, what that would look like. What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? What does our net profit look like? And just really being able to like future pace if there was a right decision to make the hire. And we ultimately decided that it was, and that we had like what the budget was to afford these things. It goes beyond just the initial like, hey, here's your books are kept up and everything squared away. It's like it's really just beyond that and on a more strategic business level. Because when it came down to it, I'm sitting there and I'm like, how do I navigate this hire, right? Or like how am I going to afford this? Can I make this decision? If we do this for 3 months and it doesn't work out, is it going to work? Like those aren't scenarios that I could just go to a bookkeeper and have them figure all that stuff out for. Like it goes way beyond that. And so it's been a lot of clarity knowing like, hey, number one, what are just my baseline numbers? What's my net profit? What is my revenue for the month? What is it compared to last month, last quarter? And then also being able to future pace that. What are we going to end the year with? How are we going to plan financially? Like, what type of dividends are you going to take out? So that whole process, it's just been really great to like show up and again lean on you, not have to really think about it much on my end, and just know that everything finance related, accounting related, strategic planning related is just all covered. Just knowing like budget wise what I can kind of set aside for everything. And again, yeah, it's been a super clarifying process because now it's just anything finance related. I just go into the Slack channel, ask you a question, you or Dylan, and then everything gets wrapped up from there. So that's been like unbelievably gratifying to have that handled.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely something where there's a lot of things that touch the finance space and the accounting space that I think most people have the misconception that there's not an application for somebody that's handling their finances as a CFO to be able to have input on. Like your decisions as you scale, kind of having that capability to have a partner that's there invested with you to help you make those decisions. I think there's so many corners that you can't look around, especially as you start to grow and start to scale. Because I think at a point you were growing pretty dang quick, and we start to realize like, okay, you have a good amount of cash just sitting in your bank account. Let's see how we can start leveraging it, because at a certain point, having just a ton of cash sittings in a checking account not earning anything, that's an opportunity, right? And I think having a team with you, a CFO that's able to say, hey, let's maybe figure out the most efficient way to take money off the table from a tax perspective, but also in a way that's going to generate you more income is important for sure. So I would say, last question here. I mean, what would you kind of recommend people that are kind of running an agency or a digital based business? At what point do you feel like it would be a good time for them to get really good value from stacks?
I think definitely when you're at the point where you like number one, you need a bookkeeper or someone regardless, because at the end of the year, whenever taxes come around and you realize nothing was handled, like you're going to need something to some degree. So I would even start looking at least in that scope, like you're going to need someone regardless. The fractional CFO stuff definitely starts coming into play whenever multiple people get involved. When you start thinking about payroll, when you start thinking about like more complex things than just you, like obviously, again, you can find other vendors who do it for, they'll do just bookkeeping and payroll. But honestly, like Alex, beyond just the scope of the finance related stuff of like the direct, here's your books are handled and here is your, taxes are handled. He's been almost like a strategic advisor in my company in terms of future pacing things, knowing how much budget I can set aside and like what is reasonable and unreasonable on just almost like an executive level, like a fractional CFO. So I would say, honestly, I would get him on board whenever you can realistically like afford to get someone like this on board. Whenever, and I guess that's why you need a CFO, is to know when you can and can't afford things. But I would get him on as soon as possible. You're going to need tax and stuff regardless, in any business to make sure that you don't go to jail for tax fraud. So I would definitely get someone on board, and then eventually it'll definitely make the decision that if you want to transition full into like full CFO advisory, Alex is going to be your guy, and you should definitely think about that as soon as you can afford it, because I'm telling you, you're going to have so much clarity when okay, at the end of the month, here's how much I have saved, here's how much I have left to invest inside the business, here's how much I should take out personally, and how much you can aggressively spend inside your business. Because yeah, one of the biggest realizations, like I'm growing quick, but I could be growing even quicker because I didn't realize how much money I had left on the table and how much room I had to grow. And on the converse side, if you have a lot of expenses and unnecessary things and your net margins aren't where they should be, then he can help also identify that and where you can cut costs and really just make the most growth for your business. So whenever you can afford them, I'd get them in the door as fast as possible, because, this has been a game changer for me in my business. And I know I would not be anywhere near where I am now if I didn't have every part of that finance function of my business like sorted. So
That's awesome, Matt. I appreciate it, man. Well, thanks for coming on. This was cool.
awesome. Appreciate you.